You remember the day your motivation died, even if nothing dramatic happened on the outside. Maybe it was a morning like any other. The alarm went off. The world asked the same things of you it always does. Answer the messages, show up, be useful, be productive, be on. But when you opened your eyes, something inside you was gone. The engine that used to kick and automatically simply refused to start. The future didn't scare you. It didn't excite you either. It was just there. Flat. Silent. Motionless. You didn't lose the ability to move. You lost the reason to move. Once you ran on invisible fuel, obligation, fear of disappointing people, the rush of being needed, the chase for meaning, for spiritual progress, for becoming your best self. You read the books, watched the videos, did the inner work. Somewhere along the way, you woke up. You saw through illusions. Masks fell. Patterns became obvious. And then slowly, brutally, the things that used to drive you stopped working. This is the part no one warns you about, the hangover of awakening. From the outside, your life might look exactly the same. You still walk through your days. You still answer when called. You still smile when necessary. But inside, there's a quiet, echoing room where your old motivation used to live. The goals feel fake. The hustle feels scripted. The old dreams feel like clothes that belong to someone else. And Jung would say, of course they do. Because that someone else was never the whole of you. Carl Jung called it the persona. The role you play so the world has something easy to understand. The good daughter. The high achiever. The healer. The spiritual one. The reliable friend. The one who always has a plan. That persona can be incredibly functional. It can build careers, relationships, images, entire lives. It can also run almost entirely on borrowed motivations. The need to be liked, admired, chosen, safe. But awakening, in its rawest form, doesn't just give you more light. It burns through the mask. The problem is that when the mask collapses, it doesn't just take your false identity with it. It takes your old purpose too. The motivation that once came from fear, performance, approval, and unconscious wounds goes offline. Your body refuses to move for the same reasons. Your mind refuses to believe in the same stories. Your soul refuses to keep negotiating its value. So you stand there, awakened, but empty inside. You're not lazy. You're not ungrateful. You're not failing spiritually. You are watching the death of a life that no longer fits you, while the new one has not yet taken shape. It's a psychic winter. Everything looks stripped bare, lifeless. On the surface, nothing grows. Under the surface, everything is being rearranged. When motivation dies after awakening, it feels like a betrayal. You did the work. You sought the truth. You wanted to be more alive, not less. But Jung would gently remind you, what's dying is not your capacity for purpose. What's dying is everything in you that mistook performance for purpose and urgency for meaning. You are not at the end. You are in the corridor between two selves. And somewhere behind the quiet, behind the numbness, behind the life that refuses to move the way it used to, something watches you with ancient patience. It asks for nothing, rushes nothing, reveals nothing before its time. That is why this emptiness feels so absolute. Not because nothing remains, but because what remains is finally true, and it won't emerge until you're no longer willing to live as who you were. Awakening was supposed to be the moment everything finally made sense. You thought that once you woke up, the confusion would clear, the anxiety would settle, and your life would rearrange itself around some luminous purpose. People talk about awakening as if it were a light switch. One day you're asleep, trapped in illusions, and the next day you're clear, aligned, inspired, overflowing with meaning. No one posts real sobrio outro lato. The mornings when you wake up spiritually awake and emotionally absent. Because at first, the awakening really does feel like light. There's that rush of realization. Patterns becoming visible, old wounds coming to the surface, fake dynamics cracking, truths you always sensed finally standing in front of you without disguise. You see how much of your life was built on fear. You see how your relationships ran on unspoken deals and subtle manipulation. You see how you were performing yourself so you wouldn't be abandoned, rejected, replaced. For a while, this clarity can feel empowering. There's a sense of, I'll never go back to sleep again. You feel older inside, more sober, less easily fooled. You promise yourself, from now on, everything will be more real, more honest, more aligned. But then, something strange begins to happen. The things you promised yourself you would fix, you no longer have the energy to fix. The life you swore you would redesign, you no longer have the same hunger to chase. The relationships you wanted to heal, you can't seem to perform in anymore. You stop over-explaining. You stop over-apologizing. You stop forcing interest. You say, I don't know more often, not as a poetic phrase, but as a bare, exhausted truth. It's like the fire went out. Not just the fire of your ego, but the fire of your drive. This is the paradox no one tells you about. When you see through the illusions that once fueled you, they stop working as fuel. The dream job becomes just a job. The status symbol becomes just an object. The compliments become just sounds. Even your spiritual performance, the image of the conscious one, the healer, the awake one, starts to feel heavy, like wearing a costume you're suddenly aware of. From the outside, it looks like you've lost motivation. From the inside, it's worse. You've lost the ability to pretend that what once motivated you still matters. Jung understood this as a moment of inner truth, not collapse. He saw that so much of what we call motivation is actually fear dressed as purpose. Fear of being nobody. Fear of being unseen. Fear of failing the role we were assigned or chose for ourselves. When that layer is exposed, when the inner eye opens, we can't unknow what we've seen. And once you've seen that half of your effort was about proving something, it becomes almost impossible to keep investing in the same way. So you stand in this strange silence, aware but not energized, clear but not driven, awake but unable to move like before. You might tell yourself, something is wrong with me. I used to be so determined. I used to push through everything. I used to have plans. But that you who pushed, forced, and overrode your own limits was often running on a kind of emergency system. Survival, adaptation, persona. The awakening didn't steal your motivation. It unplugged you from a power source that was draining you while pretending to sustain you. Now there is a gap, a terrifying one. You can no longer lie to yourself the way you did, but you also don't yet have a new, honest reason to live, to work, to love, to stay. It feels like a life without a script. And humans don't like being unscripted. The old lines no longer fit, and the new ones haven't been written. That is why this phase feels like emptiness instead of freedom. You've stepped out of the old prison, but you haven't found your true home yet. Jung would say, this is the moment when the persona starts to crack. The mask that once knew its lines is slipping. The character is forgetting how to play the role. And under that forgetting, something deeper is watching carefully, waiting to see if you will cling to the old performance, or allow yourself to fall into a more dangerous honesty about who you really are. Carl Jung knew that this strange feeling of, I don't know how to be myself anymore, was not random. For him, it was the moment when the persona starts to lose its power. The persona, in simple terms, is like your public version, the version of you that learned how to survive and be accepted. Think of it as the outfit you wear for the world, or the profile picture you show so people know how to treat you. Maybe your persona is the strong one who never breaks, the one everybody relies on. Maybe it's the good girl who never says no and always tries to be kind. Maybe it's the capable professional who always delivers, even when she's falling apart inside. Maybe it's the spiritual one who has to be calm, wise, above drama, never triggered, always composed. These roles are not completely fake. They are parts of you, but they are not the whole of you. For years, a lot of your motivation probably came from keeping that persona alive. You woke up to be the responsible one, to be the gifted one, to be the spiritually evolved one, to be the one who doesn't break down, doesn't fall apart, doesn't disappoint. You chased goals that were half yours and half borrowed from parents, culture, religion, mentors, and everything you've seen online. Even your desire to awaken might have carried traces of persona, wanting to be the one who sees deeper, feels more, understands what others don't. That's the hidden part. What you called purpose was often a mix of real values and fear of losing the image you had built. When awakening begins, you start to notice the gap between your persona and your real feelings. You say yes and feel your body saying no. You smile while your chest tightens. You listen to someone vent for an hour and feel a quiet voice inside whispering, "I can't do this anymore." You keep playing the role, but the costume feels heavier every day. At first, this awareness is just uncomfortable. Then it becomes unbearable. And this is when your motivation starts to die. Not because you don't care about life, but because you can no longer pretend that living only to protect a role is enough. The energy that used to come from fear, from wanting to be liked, from wanting to be the good one, stops flowing. Something in you refuses to keep pushing just to maintain the image. From the outside, it looks like you're losing your drive. From the inside, it feels like your deeper self is quietly unplugging you from a performance that has gone on for too long. You still try, of course. You try to push yourself the way you used to. Come on, get it together, just do it, just show up, just be strong, just be grateful. But the body doesn't respond with the same obedience. The soul doesn't cooperate with the same blind urgency. There's a quiet refusal growing somewhere inside you, a refusal to keep moving for the sake of an image. On the surface, this looks like laziness. Inside, it's a revolt. Jung saw this revolt as the self beginning to withdraw its energy from the false center. The self, the deeper, wiser core of who you are, starts reclaiming power from the mask it once tolerated. It no longer wants all your life force to be invested in being impressive, agreeable, useful, admired, or spiritually advanced. So it does something that feels cruel. It lets the old motivations die. Projects that were mostly about proving your worth no longer excite you. Roles that depended on you being endlessly available suddenly feel unbearable. Relationships where you always play the caretaker start to feel painfully one-sided. Even your spiritual routines, the things you did to feel high vibration or to keep your identity as the awakened one, may start to feel oddly hollow, like rituals that no longer match the person performing them. So you say, "I don't recognize myself anymore." And Jung would answer very calmly, "Good. You're starting to see the difference between who you are and who you had to be. This is why your motivation feels dead. It hasn't vanished into nothing. It has simply been removed from the wrong place. It is no longer there to keep the persona running at any cost. It is being slowly reoriented towards something else, something quieter, more honest, less glamorous. But that something else is not ready yet. It doesn't arrive as a clear 5-year plan, a polished new identity, or a neat, marketable purpose. The self moves slowly. It waits. It watches. It lets the mask grow weaker. It lets you feel the boredom of your own performance, the exhaustion of holding up roles that no longer fit. It allows the silence to deepen until the noise of the old life becomes impossible to ignore. From the outside, people might say, "You've changed. You don't try like you used to. You've lost your fire." But inside, another truth is forming. I can't go back to moving the way I did because I know too much now. This is not a loss of purpose. It's the collapse of the wrong center of gravity. And there is a hidden mercy in this collapse. Once the persona is no longer strong enough to carry your entire life, you have no choice but to ask a harder question. a question that cannot be answered with performance, image, or borrowed dreams anymore. There comes a point where your life starts to look like winter, even if the calendar doesn't. Nothing is obviously wrong. The same streets, the same room, the same people, the same routine. But inside, it feels like the leaves have fallen off everything. The branches of your life are still there. Your work, your relationships, your responsibilities, but they look bare, stripped, almost skeletal. You show up, but it feels like you're walking through a landscape where nothing new grows. You don't feel dramatic pain all the time. Often you feel nothing. Numb, flat, detached. The shows you used to binge feel boring. The conversations you used to chase now drain you after 5 minutes. The goals that once lit you up now feel like someone else's to-do list. It's not that you hate your life. It's that you can't find yourself in it anymore. Jung would call this a psychic winter, the season when the soil of the soul looks dead, while underneath it, the roots are quietly rearranging. Outwardly, it looks like you've stopped growing. Inwardly, everything that used to motivate you is being questioned, dissolved, reordered. But because this work is invisible, you judge yourself harshly. I should be doing more. I should want more. I should care more. The truth is, you're in an in-between space, no longer asleep, but not yet rerouted. The old reasons to move have lost their power, and the new reasons are still seeds, not trees. That's why forcing yourself doesn't work anymore. You can push your body, but you can't make your soul believe in what it has already outgrown. Winter is not a mistake in nature. It's a phase the forest cannot skip. And the same is happening inside you. This stillness, this lack of motivation, this strange emptiness, is not the end of your story. It's the part where everything goes quiet, so that what truly belongs to you can finally hear itself. Some people will look at you in this phase and say, "You're just burnt out," or "You're probably depressed." And sometimes they're right. There are moments when clinical depression is real, serious, and needs care from a professional. But there is also something more subtle that many awakened people go through, a kind of soul fatigue that doesn't fit neatly into a diagnosis. For years, your nervous system has been working overtime, not just to handle work, bills, and responsibilities, but to hold up your persona, to stay pleasant, useful, available, to be the one who understands, who forgives, who holds space, who carries what others drop. Even your spiritual journey may have added another layer of pressure. Always healing, always processing, always working on yourself, as if your inner life were a project that could never rest. Modern psychology and neuroscience have a language for this. Research on chronic stress and burnout shows that when the nervous system stays in a constant fight, flight, or freeze mode for years, the brain begins to shut down non-essential functions just to cope. Motivation, creativity, and the ability to feel pleasure are often among the first to dim. Studies on burnout describe something very similar to what you feel now: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a sense that your efforts no longer matter. It's as if the system decides, if nothing I do feels meaningful anymore, why keep pushing so hard? At some point, the system simply refuses. Your body starts saying no in quiet ways. You can't focus like before, you feel inexplicably tired. You stare at tasks you could once do with your eyes closed and hit an inner wall. Things that used to be stimulants, a new project, a compliment, a crisis to solve, no longer give you that sharp hit of adrenaline. The survival fuel is gone. And what's left is a strange combination of exhaustion and clarity. Jung wouldn't dismiss this as just laziness or weakness. He would see it as a sign that the way you were living was no longer sustainable for your deeper self. Where modern research speaks about overactivation of the stress system and burnout, Jung would add, the collapse of motivation is also a message from the psyche. A message that says, I cannot keep running on fear, on people-pleasing, on overfunctioning, even if that makes me look like the best version of myself. So yes, there may be burnout. There may be emotional exhaustion. Your brain and your body are tired in very real, measurable ways. But underneath all of that, there is a quieter truth. The way you used to generate motivation was costing you too much. Your soul is tired of moving for the wrong reasons. And when that kind of tiredness arrives, something radical happens next. The external rewards that once drove you, achievement, admiration, being needed, being seen as strong or spiritual, start to lose their power over you one by one. As the old motivations fade, something unexpected happens. You stop responding to the world the way you used to. The urgency is gone. The impulse to fix, to chase, to prove, to outperform, to be the good one, simply dissolves. What once felt like purpose now feels like noise. And the relationships, routines, and pursuits that depended on your constant emotional labor suddenly show their true weight. You're not colder now, you're clearer. You notice who calls only when they need. You notice how much of your life was built on being available, responsible, comforting, competent, impressive. You notice the invisible exchanges beneath your generosity. The way you offered more so you wouldn't be forgotten, the way you carried more so you wouldn't be replaceable. Neuroscience shows that when the brain is no longer fueled by reward systems tied to performance and validation, the dopamine loops collapse. What once gave you a spark, the compliment, the approval, the achievement, now barely registers. Jung would say this is not the death of desire, but the death of borrowed desire. The motivations that belong to your persona and not to yourself. And while part of you misses the old fire, another part finally exhales. You don't have the strength to pretend anymore, but you don't have the appetite to go back either. This is the strange balance of awakening. You no longer believe in the old story, and the new one hasn't revealed itself. So yes, it feels empty. Yes, it feels quiet in a way that borders on unsettling. But for the first time, the silence is honest. And even if nothing in you has bloomed yet, you can sense it. This emptiness is not a void. It's a clearing. The soil has been wiped clean. Not because nothing will grow there again, but because what grows next has to belong to you, and only you. There will come a day when you look back at this version of yourself, the one who feels empty, unmotivated, strangely absent from her own life, and you will realize this was not your collapse. This was your soul refusing to live on autopilot one moment longer. The death of your old motivation is not the end of your story. It is the moment your life stops being powered by fear, image, and obligation. It is the quiet breaking of a contract you never consciously signed. I will abandon myself as long as I am loved, needed, admired, or useful. That contract is burning now. That's why everything feels like smoke. Jung would remind you that the psyche is not cruel without purpose. When the persona cracks, when your usual roles fall apart, it's not to leave you empty forever. It's to make room. The self, that deeper, older center in you, doesn't rush. It lets the old world crumble piece by piece, until you can no longer pretend that half alive is enough. Somewhere under this numbness, new desires are already forming. Quieter, cleaner, less dramatic. A different kind of motivation, one that doesn't start from who do they need me to be, but from what feels true in my bones. It might begin as something very small, a subject you can't stop thinking about, a kind of work that makes time disappear, a way of living that brings peace instead of strain. It won't arrive with fireworks. It will arrive like a soft yes that doesn't drain you. You haven't lost your purpose. You've lost the version of purpose that was slowly costing you yourself. So if you feel empty now, don't treat this as a verdict. Treat it as a threshold. You are standing between two lives, the one that kept you running and the one that will finally let you rest inside your own truth. This is not punishment. It's protection. Life is removing from your hands what you can no longer carry without breaking. One day, your motivation will return, but it will be different. It won't need you to perform, to shrink, to overgive, to hide. It will move from a deeper place, and when it does, you won't feel like you're dragging yourself through your days. You'll feel like something wiser is quietly carrying you. If this spoke to a place in you you've never been able to explain out loud, stay close. There is nothing wrong with you because your old fire went out. It simply means the light you're meant to live by hasn't fully risen yet.